Hello, everyone. My name is Eric White. I am founder of Hoosiers Connected. I am also the HOA president of a neighborhood on the north side of Indianapolis called North Willow Farms. We're a 393 home community built in the late 60s and early 70s. We have all underground utilities, and it came to our attention through a public notice last year that Verizon was planning to install a series of 5G towers throughout our neighborhood. Some of them were on street corners, some of them were right in front of people's homes, but we didn't receive any sort of notification. We didn't have any sort of say so in the process. At least as when the process began, we didn't have any say so. Um, we've been very assertive, and so I come into this from maybe more of a political and a property rights perspective than I do a health and environmental concern. While I do have those concerns, I'm definitely not a thought leader in that area, and I'm still getting up to speed and learning from others about what's happening. The I want to share with you, I guess, a little bit about the tools that we've used to educate and inform people and try to create some political momentum to um, change and influence how this rollout is happening here. So, the number one thing, the absolute best thing that we have done throughout this process has been the creation of YouTube videos. The videos that we make have been very informative, very factual, to the point. I worked really hard to have sort of a personal brand here that we don't post anything speculative. We don't speak ill of anyone. I mean, I definitely take some swipes at Verizon, but this is not a vindictive sort of movement. This is really about educating and informing people because once people find out what's happening, they will let their natural frustrations and curiosities create momentum and move forward. So, YouTube platform has been really powerful for us, both as an educational tool, but also attention getting tool. So I created this specific video that you see just to inform my neighborhood about what was happening. But the video got passed around, and I know people in the city and people in other cities around the state have viewed it and reached out to me and thanked me for the video or asked questions. So really effective, just for educating your audience, but then also for getting shared out and helping you become a resource for information for other people who may become concerned about that. It's been a huge magnet for us. Great success. The second thing we did is I got onto the city's website. I downloaded a spreadsheet that was full of all the permits that had been created over the course of the last several years, and then I made a Google map with it. So this really let people see how many of these things were going in, which part of the cities were being perhaps overserved and underserved. It let people ask a lot of questions about why are certain areas seeing such a density of towers, whereas other areas are not covered at all. But ultimately, people can't really assess what's happening where by looking things up in a permitting database. The information really has to be presented in a visual way. And also, like the YouTube video, this got shared around. I don't know if you can see the little eyeballs there on the top left of the screen, but this thing, 26,000 views as I created this video. So, got a lot of attention. Has been referenced in a number of news articles that have come out on the topic, and I think has really been able to be a go-to resource. Again, for people who are concerned about it, but also people who work for the city of Indianapolis that don't necessarily have the ability to visualize this information. The other thing I did, and this has been less effective than YouTube and the Google Map, but I created a sort of an organization, I guess. We're not any sort of official organization. This is really just a website that represents a few people who are very motivated to deal with this. So we've tried to make this again, a go-to resource. I can direct people to this website rather than having to have a phone call with everyone who wants to learn about the issue. The bottom right-hand side of this, you can see there's a little circle. And if you were to go to our website, HoosiersConnected.org, and click on that little circle, it brings up a video of me making a personal appeal to our state legislators. So most of our work over the last few months has been at the state legislative level because we're trying to help shape some legislation that's going through on the topic, and make sure that it represents homeowners as well as it can. This I include this just because one of the things also that we've tried to do is always give people something to do. So I always want to drive people towards action rather than just complaining about it and being upset about it. Like, we all need to be working together to to create momentum, to generate visibility and pressure on this issue. And so we have found that state representatives are a great resource, and so the more traffic we can drive to their email and phone lines, the better off we're going to be. One other tool that we've used that I don't love, but it has been of some help to us, is Change.org. A couple of issues that I have with it. While it does get us a lot of attention and visibility, and I think it's a good discovery tool, it's also very noisy. So this particular petition, we got 3,000 signatures. I would say only about 2,000 of those are people from Indiana that I'm able to reference when I send names and send data off to state legislators. So it's nice to get attention, but as I mentioned before, it's very important to me to be factual and sober in my communication, and so I don't ever want to get caught trying to inflate our numbers. So it creates extra work for me, and to have to go through and kind of sift out to make sure that the people that I'm including are actually residents of Indiana who our legislators should be concerned about. Couple pieces, I guess, of advice. I wanted to share some lessons learned in addition to the tools. The number one lesson I think that's important to remember is that carriers have not engineered consent to put 5G towers in residential areas. People are generally favorable towards 5G, right? Like, why not? It's going to be faster internet, and everybody likes faster, better internet. But once people realize that the cost of that is often towers in front of homes with no notification, with no ability to remonstrate, that ruffles feathers, and it really exposes that a big weakness in their rollout strategy. So there's an area right there that I don't think that they've built consent among politicians. They certainly have not built consent among homeowners. And so there's an Achilles heel right there that you can attack. Something that, from honestly the very first day that I got involved, is I just always had a three-pronged plan. So I'm always trying to figure out, how can we get more media attention on this? How can we create more political pressure and visibility? And then how can we give ourselves the most legal options possible to deal with this situation? So at any given point in time, I've got 3 or 4 action steps in each of those categories that I'm working on. And I've just found that, when there have been times that I haven't had a plan in place, things really stall, or they go sideways. So the plan really allows us to always have forward momentum and be the aggressors in the situation. Another thing I learned really early on is I really need a team. I can't do it all myself. So, despite being a reasonably effective communicator and, a reasonably effective activist, there's no possible way that I can have a family and run a business and do this. And so it's been very important to me to build a loose-knit team around me. I've got one person, kind of like a wingman, who is extremely knowledgeable on the issue, is a very sharp thinker, both politically and legally, but for various reasons has no interest in being the face of the cause. And so he and I have had a really positive symbiotic relationship where he does so much of the thinking and then I end up doing a lot of the communicating. It's just been invaluable to have him for his encouragement and his knowledge and energy. And then, of course, lots of other people. I mean, lawyers and lobbyists, you're probably not going to be able to afford to keep them on your staff, if you will, but a lot of them are property rights nerds, and they become very concerned about matters like this and are willing to be on phone calls and give advice, and sometimes even get involved on their own. I should have started with this one, but in the work that I do, we talk about people having a job to be done, right? There's always something that is, as humans, we're these aspirational, striving creatures, and so we're always trying to like accomplish things, and we need things in our life. And you as a leader become much more powerful when you can figure out how to weave those motivations together rather than opposing them. So journalists, for example, are under incredible pressure to constantly be cranking out interesting content. This is a good story for them. And the better you can get at developing the skeleton of a story to take to a journalist, the more effective you're going to be. They pride themselves in telling the stories of the underdog, of bringing attention to wrongs that are being done in society. And they're going to be thrilled to tell your story if you can bring it to them in the right way. Local and state politicians, a lot of times we think of as, some of them we think of as butting heads, but look, 90% of the people that I've met, and this could be different, I could be wrong about them, but 90% of the people are basically, they want to do the right thing, and they cannot be aware and fully knowledgeable of any issue. And so if you're able to respectfully bring things to their attention and do it in a way of being collaborative and being productive, they're going to be very interested in what you have to share, and they're going to be interested in taking up your cause, especially if you can represent a large group of votes. You don't stay in power if you don't get votes. And so if you can help politicians understand that these issues are important to their constituents, you're going to be able to get a lot more attention. And I guess just my last little piece of advice is just simply try to have some humor as you're out publicly on this. It's a very serious issue. There are moral consequences, there are health and environmental consequences, there are property right issues, but when you're trying to get people's attention and when you're trying to keep people engaged, humor is a really effective way of doing it. So be noisy, be vibrant, try to be funny, try to have, a positive, attractive face to all of your messaging, because that's really going to do a good job of drawing people in. Once you've drawn people in, then you have an opportunity to inform them, to engage them, to try to create from them some sort of action. And then finally, feel free to reach out to me anytime. It's an honor to get to share this type of information with you. I do hope that it's of some help and encouragement to you. I know how challenging, I know how tiring, I know how discouraging this work can be, but you've got what it takes. I'd love to hear about what's working for you and what's not working for you, or to stay connected or to provide encouragement or support to you in any way. So I wish you well in your work, and thank you for the work that you're doing, and hopefully together we can make something better for everyone in the future.